Thank you so very much. First, I'd like to thank and congratulate my colleagues from communities across our great state, from the north and south, from the urban to the rural, to the coastal and inland, for passing the most far-reaching package. We're at halftime right now, and I understand that. We got some more bills to go, but several measures so far of climate legislation, the most far-reaching, not just in California history, but in U.S. history. This package of bills will put California on a pathway to sustainable economic growth, protecting the health of our communities and the integrity of our environment, while also spurring a wave of innovation in our energy and transportation sectors. These policies will bring much-needed investments to our infrastructure systems, reduce energy costs for families, create jobs in construction and energy efficiency retrofitting, reduce the harmful air pollutants that our children breathe into their lungs, and increase the livability and walkability of our communities. California has demonstrated our global climate leadership over the last decade with landmark policies including the Global Warming Solutions Act, our vehicle tailpipe emission standards, as well as our building energy efficiency standards. We are home to the 7th largest economy in the world. We lead the nation in venture capital, and Bloomberg Business recently named California the best state for business. We're continuing to grow while getting more economic value per ton of greenhouse gas emissions than almost any other country in the world. These policies will further cement our leadership, further strengthen our economy, and protect the health of communities from the growing risk posed by our climate policies. Now, we pass on the torch to the Assembly, and we look forward to working with our colleagues on the green carpet in that chamber, as well as Governor Jerry Brown, to make sure that these measures are signed into law. I'm going to say something very brief in Spanish. They're going to turn it over to Senator Fran Pavley, and then we can go to questions and answers. Hoy California está liderando en el tema del medio ambiente, creando cambio y aprobando en el Senado estatal una agenda climática, algo que nunca jamás ha visto en el mundo. Estamos dando un paso más cerca para contrarrestar el alto índice alarmante y peligroso de carbono y otros tipos de contaminantes que nuestros hijos respiran en sus pulmones. Estamos democratizando también el proceso de las entidades que existe para hacer más accesible los vehículos eléctricos y un panel solar para las comunidades de bajos ingresos, aquellas comunidades humildes a lo largo y ancho del estado de California, sin importar su país de origen, sin importar su estado económico, sin importar el color de su piel. Lo que estamos haciendo colectivamente, los demócratas del Senado, estamos democratizando este proceso de lo que es el cambio climático para toda la gente trabajadora. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Senator Fran Pavley, but I want to highlight very quickly that we will have Senate Bill number 9, that is Senator Jim Bell, Transit and Inter-City Rail Capital Program. We'll have Senator Carol Liu, SB 64, the California Transportation Plan. We'll have next up, when we return to the floor, Senate Bill 189 by Senator Ben Hueso, Maximizing Jobs and Economic Growth. Senator SB 246, Mr. Wachowski, Climate Adaptation. SB 367, Ms. Lois Wolk, Agricultural Climate Benefits Act. SB 379 by Senator Jackson, Climate Adaptation. Dealing with the Green Assistance Program, that's Senate Bill 398, that is Senator Connie Leyva. SB 758 by Senator Marty Block, Atmospheric Rivers. And lastly, SB 788, a joint authorship of Senators Mike McGuire and Hannah Beth Jackson, dealing with the California Coastal Protection Act of 2015. With that, with great pleasure, I turn it over to the Senate, author of AB 32 and the progeny of AB 32, Senate Bill 32, Senator Hannah Beth Jackson. I'm sorry, Senator.
We can do Hannah Beth.
HBJ. With that, Senator Fran Pavley.
That's okay. okay. We all look the same.
That's right. You've seen one woman.
And I didn't say that. Yeah.
We both represent Ventura County.
That's true.
That's the confusion. That's
Legislator.
I wanted to take the opportunity to thank Senate Pro Tem Kevin De León for his leadership on this, putting together a package of bills, the commitment from my fellow state senators. Boy, does that send a strong signal, right? That California is open for business. We are a state that really encourages and thrives on people's innovations and investment in our great state. And we have the history to prove it. It was sort of a gamble with Fabian Nunez and myself and Arnold Schwarzenegger on AB 32. Boy, if we set a cap on emissions and rolled them back and adopted market-based mechanisms, would the private sector step in? And boy, have they. Over $30 billion of venture capitalist money has poured into our state. There are literally these new businesses in everyone's district. We have increased jobs. It was one of the brightest spots during the recession. And this is a perfect time, Senator De León, for us to move forward together. And I thank you for your leadership. I'm carrying SB 32 because I think it's important to take governor's executive orders, whether it was in AB 32, which was Governor Schwarzenegger's, or SB 32, which includes Governor Brown's midterm and long-term executive orders into statute. It requires legislative buy-in. It sends a long-term signal to the marketplace that California is open for business. And it also puts the legislature in charge of this process, providing the oversight and the future embedded policies such as SB 350 that will be needed in order to reach these long-term targets. So I'm thrilled to be here today and part of California's history.
Thank you so very much. What we'll do now is we'll open up to questions related to the climate change package. Again, I went over the senators that are here present today. They will be bringing up their bills shortly. And we also have with us business interests as well as labor and environmental interests as well here today collectively. So any questions from our colleagues here, please.
Mr. Majera. Conversations with utilities over the targets being set. How are those conversations going? How are you modifying the plan to adjust for their concerns?
Well, I don't want to get too far with regards to modifying. What I'd like to characterize those conversations as being very constructive, being incredibly respectful. I have engaged at the highest level with Tony Early, the chair of PG&E, with Jeff Martin, the CEO of San Diego Gas and Electric, as well as the chair of Edison International. I'm losing his name right now. Ted Craver, the chair of Edison International. I would characterize, again, as extremely positive, very respectful, not negative at all. There is a belief that they can easily reach the 50% threshold by the year 2030. So the conversations are ongoing, but again, I would characterize them as not defensive, but rather very positive, very proactive.
But would importing energy satisfy your objective to create jobs in California if the stations are elsewhere outside of California?
There's a couple points. One is when we introduce this package, these package of bills, we underscored and highlighted a couple points. One is we want to create jobs for Californians, jobs that are real, jobs that are tangible, that can't be outsourced or offshored elsewhere. So we want to put Californians to work. That's why we view this as an economic growth and economic stimulator of bills that are that comprise this package. But we will listen to everyone. We know there are folks that import or export their renewable energy. Like I said, I highlighted a red state, which is Wyoming, that imports wind power to California. If you're connected to the grid, let's sit down and let's talk. That's really critical. But I want to underscore, We want to create jobs for Californians and put Californians to work.
Do you have a sense of how much SB 350 will cost the California economy? I know that analysis is being done by regulators going into it.
Well, you got three different components. You got the energy efficiency component. The objective, the thesis behind the energy efficiency component is to reduce your energy load. Therefore, you're paying less money for the cost of energy because you're not using energy. So that's one focus right there. Obviously, with the RPS right now, there are clear clauses, in the in SB 350, as they were, and then State Senator Joe Simitian's measure too, that hey, if it's a transmission issue, if it's too costly for the ratepayer, then you can apply for a waiver. As to date, no one has applied for a waiver. No, not one single IOU. So, we're working out our numbers, but the whole point is to bring renewable energy where you won't have increases for the ratepayers of the state of California. And let me say, there's a lot of scare tactics right now going on, and it's not the IOUs, but other industries perhaps are trying to send the fear into California's minds that gas prices will go through the roof. Transportation fuels went under the cap in January, and there was talk about incredible spikes. It didn't happen in January, and I articulated on the Senate floor that quite interestingly, during the Memorial Day weekend, gas prices shot up, and all of a sudden Memorial Day weekend is over and gas prices are going back down. And that's why Senators Jim Bell as well as Senator Ben Waso have held oversight hearings on the volatility of domestic gas prices, specifically in the state of California, and will continue to have more hearings on the issue of the price of gasoline.
What sort of opposition are you expecting from the oil industry?
We're expecting very fierce opposition from the oil industry. What we're asking Detroit, we're asking, Germany, we're asking the Koreans, we're asking the Japanese for better fuel technologies, we're asking for more engine efficiency. That shouldn't upset the oil industry because that's good for the consumer, that's good for the taxpayer, that's good for all of our constituents, irrespective if you're a Republican or a Democrat. That's good when you can have more money in your pocket to spend on your family and you're polluting less. So all we're asking, quite frankly, is for the technologies to be innovative and demand more value out of the dollar for taxpayers in California. That shouldn't be something that the oil companies object to, but it's very clear that they do object to it.
Let me ask Senator Hadley, AB 32, 20% reduction from 1990 levels by 2020. Now you're moving up to 80% by 2050. That's an order of magnitude change. What makes you think that's achievable? That seems like a big number.
It is a big number, science-based number, though. However, what we have to do to not reach the tipping point regarding global climate change. But here's the deal. So AB 32 had the midterm targets in it. It seemed like a long reach back in 2006. We're seeing that we can accomplish those objectives, and it seems like every week we're finding new technologies or new businesses coming up with incredible solutions to fill this market signal that we've sent. Governor Brown realizes midterm targets make sense to get to 2050. So we know we need to get there. It was always part of AB 32 and Governor Schwarzenegger's executive order, consistent with Governor Brown's executive order. But you'll see these midterm targets are sort of a time to pause and let's see how we're doing. We need to scale up new technologies. I think some of the biggest breakthroughs will be in areas like battery storage, whether it's for renewables or for cars, in diversifying our fuel supply, and really accelerating energy efficiency, particularly in existing building stock. So California never ceases to amaze me. So being thoughtful, legislative oversight, sending that market signal, assisting these new startup businesses, and I bet right now there's some 20-year-olds in some parent's garage coming up with the next big invention. So I think it's all about scaling up and continuing to send the signal, and we're seeing that investment capital and new businesses pour in, and a lot of success stories around the state. So I don't always look at this on how we get to 2050. We're thinking in 5-year, 10-year, 20-year implements. Policies will come about and technologies will come about. And when my car bill passed in 2002, this was before hybrids. We were just using off-the-shelf, readily available technologies to make cars cleaner. Look where we are today regarding cars and fuels. So I'm a big advocate of future planning. This is a key to the future, and I'm glad to be part of it.
You know, on the tax issue, there's a lot of, tax proposals, not just extraction from oil, but rather the split roll and, an extension of 30. We'll leave those tax issues or discussions to another day. But when I've engaged with the oil companies, WISPA, Chevron, that hasn't come up one single time. Whether it's on the back of their minds, I'm sure it is, but that is not because of any senator here today that are moving that proposal specifically.
So will you see any connection between whether this thing gets approved and perhaps no longer needing more document?
No, I don't see the nexus right now. I mean, other individuals, other senators may have a different perspective. I don't see the nexus with the package of bills that we have here. That's a revenue issue, and the revenue issue obviously dealing with the volatility of the general funds of the state of California. That's why it's imperative that we move forward with continued economic growth. Because if we don't, then obviously it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. We'll be back at the table and we'll be making more cuts. And that's what we don't want to do, especially to the most vulnerable in the state of California. We have to grow this economy. But being a negative Nelly, a Debbie Downer is not going to grow jobs in California. That's just the reality. You have to move something forward with a sense of intentionality if in fact you're going to provide for economic growth in California. Those are jobs, and those are jobs are good paying jobs that put folks in the middle class. So with that, if anyone has any individual requests from senators, we have them here too. Folks, I just want to reiterate again, we have Mr. McGuire and Jackson, Mr. Block, Ms. Leyva, Ms. Wolk, Mr. Wachowski, Mr. Wessel, Ms. Liu, and of course, Mr. Jim Bell right here. You can't miss him. He's right here. Senator Jim Bell right here. So with that, okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.